This is Mac OS Ken.
A look at aging iPads, an unsettling bug for iOS 17.5, and Apple marks Global Accessibility Awareness Day. It is Thursday, the 16th of May, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Pen Chalet, selling exquisite fountain pens for over 10 years, with special offers for Mac OS Ken listeners at penchalet.com/macosken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. New stats on old iPads from the folks at Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, or CIRP. On the same day, the new iPad Air and iPad Pro models landed in stores and the hands of consumers. 9 to 5 Mac had the boutique researcher hitting with news that totally makes sense. People keep their iPads for years, and those times are growing. According to the firm's findings, the group keeping their iPads for less than a year, presumably before getting a new one, shrank from 13% in 2023 to 10% this year. The group keeping their iPad for 1 to 2 years shrank from 29% to 25%. The group keeping their iPads for 2 to 3 years grew from 23% to 25%. And finally, the group keeping their iPads for 3 years or more grew from 36% to 40%. The piece has CIRP indicating that where tablets are concerned, people seem to be keeping them until they break, the battery dies, or they run out of storage. That said, these numbers might be chucked out in the next few months. One thing to keep in mind, says the 9 to 5 Mac piece, the study was finished before the 2024 iPads launched. The site says we'll have to keep an eye out for the next CIRP data to see if the new iPads were able to tempt customers to upgrade earlier than this data shows. There is a potentially embarrassing and somewhat troubling story going around in the wake of this week's iOS 17.5 update. A number of sites, including Apple Insider, cite posts on Reddit that say deleted photos are turning up again for some people after this week's OS release. According to the report, one user detailed that some non-work-safe images that were deleted in 2021 reappeared, complete with a mark saying that they were saved to iCloud. Others report photos reappearing in their collection despite repeated deletion attempts. While some say it is a thing that's happening, I've yet to see a site that says that they have been able to reproduce the issue. It is being taken seriously, though, perhaps thanks to precedent. It's unclear exactly what is causing the problem, according to Apple Insider, but it's one that apparently appeared in betas. The report says some iOS 17.5 Beta 4 testers apparently found the same thing. Potential embarrassment aside, when we say a photo has been deleted, what do we mean exactly? Apple Insider says Apple points out every time a pic is deleted that it will be deleted from iCloud Photos on all devices. The images are also kept in recently deleted for 30 days, according to the company, giving people time to change their minds. I know I can lose track of time, but 2021 was more than 30 days ago, right? If this is happening, how? Remember the fights a few years back between management and employees at tech companies? The ones over whether the latter would come back to the offices for which the former had paid or were still paying? Yeah, research on that has turned up this week. Ars Technica cites a post from the Washington Post that had a study from University of Chicago and University of Michigan researchers looking at results of return to office, or RTO, mandates and how they worked out. Poorly, seems to be the answer, at least for some. According to the Post, the paper provides causal evidence that RTO mandates at 3 large tech companies, Microsoft, SpaceX, and Apple, had a negative effect on the tenure and seniority of their respective workforce. In particular, researchers found the strongest negative effects at the top of the respective distributions, implying a more pronounced exodus of relatively senior personnel. Now, one might question whether studying just 3 companies paints a big enough picture, but the piece has the report's authors noted that the 3 companies represent 30% of the tech industry's revenue and over 2% of the technology industry's workforce. The 3 companies have also been influential in setting RTO standards beyond their own companies. What they found was a mix, though not one that seems great for any of the 3 companies. According to the piece from the Washington Post, at Microsoft, the share of senior employees as a portion of the company's overall workforce declined by more than 5 percentage points after the return-to-office mandate took effect, the researchers found. At Apple, the decline was 4 percentage points, while at SpaceX, the only company of the 3 to require workers to be fully in person, the share of senior employees dropped 15 percentage points. While the numbers may be small compared to each company's total workforce, the value lost may have been significant. One of the study's authors says he and his found experienced employees impacted by these policies at major tech companies seeking work elsewhere, taking some of the most valuable human capital investments and tools of productivity with them. That said, not everyone agrees. While Microsoft declined to comment on the report and SpaceX didn't even return the call, Ars Technica had Apple Representative Josh Rosenstock responding to the Post piece. Rosenstock says the report drew inaccurate conclusions and doesn't reflect the realities of Apple's business. According to the Apple rep, attrition is at historically low levels. Today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Leading into it, Apple on Wednesday announced a slew of accessibility features coming to its devices and operating systems. Top-line features listed in the press release include eye tracking, a way for users with physical disabilities to control iPad or iPhone with their eyes, music haptics, offering a new way for users who are deaf or hard of hearing to experience music using the Taptic engine in iPhone, vocal shortcuts, letting users perform tasks by making a custom sound, and vehicle motion cues, helping to reduce motion sickness when using iPhone or iPad in a moving vehicle. Additionally, the company announced a number of accessibility features on the way for Vision OS. They include live captions running system-wide and updates for vision accessibility, including reduced transparency, smart invert, and dim flashing lights. A number of other tweaks and updates were listed as well, including for VoiceOver, Magnifier, Live Speech, Voice Control, and a host of others. You can find those, as well as info on curated collections and other content to mark and celebrate Global Accessibility Awareness Day, on Apple's news site, apple.com/newsroom. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Pen Chalet, selling exquisite fountain pens for over 10 years. I was talking to a friend recently about fountain pens, and he expressed surprise. I talk about tech for a living, so why was I into such an antiquated way to write? Well, it seems to me that people who use Apple products do so for a certain level of refinement. The operating system, the hardware, there's a level of care that goes into all of that that makes using a Mac more satisfying than using a Windows machine or a Chromebook. That's not to knock those things, but the Apple ecosystem works differently and has a more refined feel. And that is why I use a fountain pen. You can write with a ballpoint or a felt tip, but there's something about the quality of the line, the ink, just the experience. Makes a fountain pen more enjoyable. That said, it can be intimidating, which is why I worked with Pen Chalet on starter boxes made specifically for macOS Ken listeners. That's a solid pen, specially selected ink, and paper that is perfect for both. Those boxes are bundled at a discount and waiting for you at penchalet.com/macOSKen, or you can take 10% off any other purchase using the code MOK10. Find the right pen for you, or give the right pen as a gift. Head to penchalet.com/macOSKen. Check out the discounted starter boxes or use code MOK10 for 10% off purchases besides the starter boxes. See what is waiting at penchalet.com/macOSKen. And a big thanks to Pen Chalet for sponsoring today's show. The words activity and meditation may not sound like they go together, though they might when one is sporting an Apple Watch. Mac Rumors says the folks at Apple Park have set the next Apple Watch activity challenge for Tuesday, the 21st of May, known to some as World Meditation Day. To complete the challenge, the piece says Apple Watch owners will need to record 5 or more mindful minutes using the Mindfulness app or any app that adds mindful minutes to the Health app. Do that and you'll get the usual virtual medallion, animated stickers, and, I don't know, a sense of calm or inner peace or something. We'll end the day with some Apple TV Plus type talk. First, news of an Apple original film that you should not expect to see anytime soon. Deadline says Cupertino's film crew has made a worldwide deal for the Tom Hiddleston, Willem Dafoe, Everest Sherpa movie, Tenzing. The Oscar-winning studio Seesaw Films will produce. Deadline says the title will center on the inspirational life of Sherpa Tenzing Norgay and his summit of Mount Everest in 1953, alongside fellow outsider New Zealander Edmund Hillary. Hiddleston will play Hillary. Dafoe will play the English expedition leader, Colonel John Hunt. The production is still looking for its Tenzing Norgay, which is why I say you should not expect to see this movie anytime soon. Unbelievably, it looks like Apple TV Plus subscribers are actually going to get to see the Natalie Portman, Moses Ingram drama series, Lady in the Lake. First announced in spring of 2021 as a vehicle for Portman and Lupita Nyong'o, the production lost Nyong'o in late spring of 2022. Ingram signed on about a month later. Of course, there were writers' strikes and actors' strikes with which to contend. But now, over 3 years after the show was announced, Apple has issued a press release with a premiere date. Recapping what the show is, the Cupertino company says, when the disappearance of a young girl grips the city of Baltimore on Thanksgiving 1966, the lives of 2 women converge on a fatal collision course. Maddie Schwartz, played by Portman, is a Jewish housewife seeking to shed a secret past and reinvent herself as an investigative journalist, and Cleo Sherwood, played by Ingram, is a mother navigating the political underbelly of Black Baltimore while struggling to provide for her family. I'm not sure if the next part of the release is a typo or a spoiler, but I'm going to skip out of that. Suffice to say, things don't go smoothly. Based on Laura Lippman's New York Times best-selling novel of the same name, Lady in the Lake is a 7-part limited series. The first 2 episodes hit Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 19th of July. And finally today, you know what's cool about a limited series? You don't have to worry about a show being canceled out from under you. That brings us to a question I posed yesterday. If you're like me, wondering whether it's worth it to watch the first season of Constellation now that there's never going to be another one, macOS Ken listener Michael says, we should. Yes, writes Michael, it does resolve at the end with an explanation. The final last part is set up for a future season, but it doesn't mess up this season, leaving with a to be continued. I am definitely not happy that Apple canceled this series. The episodes have some of the best outer space special effects I have ever seen. The first episode, he says, is kind of like the movie Gravity, but better. He goes on to describe the show. Sounds like something between the movie Sliding Doors and the current Apple TV Plus series Dark Matter to me, though he says structurally it reminds him of the Netflix series 1899, which he points out has also been canceled. Scenery's great according to Michael. Acting's great. Sounds like a resounding vote for Constellation from Michael. Don't fall in love, though. Show's over. And thank you, Michael, for writing in. macOS Ken, brought to you by me, and sponsored by Pen Chalet, selling exquisite fountain pens for over 10 years with special offers for macOS Ken listeners at penchalet.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.